The Jubilee 2020 Seminary Debt Reduction Fund will make it possible for leaders of our church to be relieved of the burden of debt. For many, many years, we in the church paid for seminary education. For a variety of reasons, there was a cultural and societal shift in funding practices all throughout the church. And there is particularly a generation of people who went to seminary in the 1990s and in the 2000s, and they took on the burden of student loan debt.
I graduated with undergraduate debt. I knew that I wanted to go on to follow this call, and to do that, it meant getting a Master's of Divinity degree. What I didn't maybe totally realize was that I would still, in my first year of seminary, double my debt from undergrad.
In the process of candidacy and applying to seminary, I was told, there's financial aid, there's federal aid, you fill out these forms, we'll help you. And that was just the way. So I applied for the financial aid, which really were loans, but I didn't, that's how I knew to go to school. That was the only way to pay for it.
I took the risk because I was serious about my call. I felt like God was calling me to be a pastor. And because I felt like my heart was out there to serve people. And so initially I was driven by the passion to be a pastor, to care for God's people, and not immediately about the money. And so I went to seminary and took all these loans, now worrying about if I will ever be able to pay back these loans, because I guess I was clouded by my passion for the ministry.
Giving up an income meant that I had to take out more loan than I normally would have just to attend school. In my undergrad years, I worked my way through college and never had to take a loan. And then I pursued a Master's of Education in my former career. And I was able to work at that time and attend school, and I had paid off all my loans, including an advanced certificate in graduate study. So I was debt-free as far as my education goes when I went to seminary.
The entire time I was in seminary, I had almost a full-time job. And even when I was in seminary during the summers, I worked as a custodial staff for 2 summers in a row, working, frankly, painting walls and cleaning toilets. So I understand what it means to go out and make money, and I'm not too proud or anything like that, not to do what I felt I was called to at the time. So I did the very best I knew how to do in a situation and a system that was highly costly and a little terrifying at times.
When I finished my undergraduate education right before I attended seminary, I was in my late 30s. So I graduated with my 4-year seminary degree at 44, which means that I don't have as much time to pay off my student debt as somebody who started 20 years earlier. And that distresses me.
When I was in seminary, I felt a call to more urban ministry, even to mission development or redevelopment, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to take on those calls to fulfill what I felt God was leading me to, because I had to choose calls that would enable me to make my monthly student loan payments. Because of my student loans, the choices that I've had to make has really impacted the calls that I was willing to accept or to take on.
My calls have really been chosen by what churches can afford to pay me, right? I went to seminary with a concentration in urban ministry. Having grown up poor, having grown up in the city, I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. Those churches can't afford me, or I can't afford to be part of those churches because in part, because of that debt. It limits my scope of what's possible.
Because of seminary debt, and for us it's been compounded by the fact that my husband and I both went to seminary at the same time, part of it has been just in our ability to stay out of additional debt, and by having to buy a home and cars and that kind of thing. But being in debt to the extent that we are because of seminary has really limited our ability to give. it's also limited our ability to save for the future.
There are a lot of people that I support on my small income, and it will help me help other people in terms of sending people to school back in Ghana.
There is a big sense of isolation at times, that I'm not able to live fully as this independent professional adult. Honestly, there are times when I feel that this has impacted my ability to have a family, that the finances just aren't there to be able to support that.
So when I first heard that this was a possibility, like I'm just working through it, one payment at a time, one church at a time. And when I heard that there could be this possibility, it felt like this huge weight was lifted. In my last year of seminary, when I was struggling, and I had been talking to one of my favorite professors, Dr. Eric Keene, he said, "Do you think it's right that only rich people should go to seminary?" And I thought, well, no, that doesn't seem right at all.
There are a number of ways you can contribute to this fund. I hope you'll have a conversation in your midst, in your congregation, with your church council, with people of means and generosity, and have a conversation. What can we do to address this problem? Consider some of the stories you have just heard, and consider making a gift to the New England Synod Jubilee 2020 Fund.
Jubilee 2020.
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 Jubilee 2020.